Motion to approve both. Second.
And does anybody have any comments or concerns that you might like to make on those before we take a vote? So all in favor of approving those, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, I need approval of the agenda. Any changes, Dr. Brown?
No changes.
Without changes?
So moved. Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, we do have a few public comments tonight. So at this point, I have three, but did you want to speak?
No, thank you.
Okay. I know they're also, and I believe all of our public comments are from some of our 4K providers in the district. So the process that we use for public comments, just so that you're familiar and comfortable, is you can come up and sit in any of the seats like behind that mic. These are recorded meetings, so you can come up. We ask that you limit your comments to about 3 minutes. Please tell us, who you are and what you're here for, and then limit it to 3 minutes.
Did you want me to time it?
Yes.
Okay.
Dawn is going to be timing, and she'll give you a hand at when they have like 30 seconds left.
Sure.
Okay? And then you can just wrap up at that point. So, first up, Maria Fitzgibbons. Do you want to be second? No. We're friendly.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us here.
Thank
My name
you.
is Maria Fitzgibbon, and I'm the owner of the Village Early Childhood Center, formerly known as Leap Academy. We've been open since 2014, and we've been a 4K site since 2015. So I believe we have served hundreds of Waunakee families in the 4K program and remain deeply invested in early learning. I listened to the meeting on Friday about the potential 4K contract and wanted to share some of my thoughts and opinions on what things would be valuable to me and my center and what I believe would be valuable to the other 4K sites. I have financial sustainability concerns. In 2015, our reimbursement rate was approximately $3,300 per child, and a decade later, it's increased to $3,600 per child. As you're well aware, operating costs have gone up significantly, as well as teaching costs, insurance, food, all have gone up significantly in this period. In 2023 and 2024, our center lost $30,700 in 2023 and $30,300 in 2024 on the 4K program. A meaningful increase in reimbursement is essential for my center and for the other centers to continue in this partnership. The second thing I want to say is that 4K is currently spread across 9 community sites, and adding additional sites and sections within the school district will dilute our possible enrollment. And so while an increase in reimbursement would be important to us, if we continue to dilute enrollment across additional sites, it won't help. Not be able to predict enrollment, as you well know, and as the discussions have been, is important for us. We're on a much smaller scale. We have 100 kids, and so to be able to fill that site and know what we're going to be able to predict is important. I just also want to say that we value the partnership with the Waunakee School District, and we want to continue contributing to the high-quality 4K education. I think we've had a great relationship and great service to our kiddos. And I think alignment between reimbursement rates, enrollment distribution, and actual operating costs is necessary for long-term sustainability. I'd also like to warmly invite any of you to come to my site and walk through with us in the next few days. Love to show you what we're doing with 4K if you'd like to see what that looks like in the day-to-day. Thank you for your time and thoughtful consideration. I look forward to talking to you more about this.
And thank you for that invite. That
Absolutely.
is, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Next, Sandra Brisa.
Thank you. I feel funny sitting this way behind me, so I apologize to all of you. I'm Sandra Brisa, and I'm the director at Peace Lutheran Preschool here in Waunakee. We started contracting with the public school system with Waunakee in, I believe it's 2011, that Waunakee first started providing 4K, and we've been a partner since that time. I also listened to the budget proposal, and I'm very encouraged and thankful for all the positive comments and all the supportive comments of, have the 4K sites have had input on what was presented so far. So I appreciate that deeply, and I agree with Maria that I would love to continue collaborating with the school district and increasing the reimbursement rate. Like Maria, I would be operating at a loss if I weren't a ministry of Peace Lutheran Church. My overhead is lower than my community partners, and there are times I have a difficult time paying bills with a reimbursement rate of, I believe my contract says $3,500. I'll have to look that up. But would appreciate, yes, absolutely, and need an increase in payment in order to pay the bills. And there are a few things that would make the collaboration more lucrative on my end. My passion is in early intervention, so catching kids with special needs, whether they're mental health needs or behavioral needs. And specifically in the last 4 years, we have had children with some extreme behavior needs. 4-year-olds that have threatened to commit suicide or to shoot their teacher. And those are not things that we take lighthearted. And I don't mean for this to be a blame on anyone, but I think if we can approach those children when they're 3-4 years old and provide the support that they need at that time, they'll arrive at the public school system much more prepared for academic readiness, rather than going backwards and having to relearn some of the social, emotional, and communication skills, how to articulate their anger. We've had children who throw tables across the room, who throw wooden blocks at their peers because they don't know how to interact with other children better. We've hired a mental health therapist with our own funds, and we're told that those services could not take place within the 4K time. So we really want to partner, and we want to do what's best for children by really supporting all of them, behavior, mental health, all of that.
Thank you very much. And I have experienced your site. It's a wonderful experience for kids, so thank you.
Thank you.
And our third speaker, again on 4K, is Bob Davis.
Hello, I'm Bob Davis from Inspire Early Childhood. We, again, would love to continue the partnership with Waunakee School District. We've done that for about 5 years very successfully. Many of the center owners and directors met today, just talked about how we could convey to you, when we look at the state's option versus the district option, some things that we think we could use to help make it a more competitive option. So we appreciate that you guys are here to listen today, and we're going to try and give you more detail coming up soon, so that you guys kind of know what we're looking for. We each kind of chose a topic out of what we talked about today. The thing that I wanted to talk to you about was potential for more open enrollment. I think when people think of great school districts, Waunakee's got to be the top, if not one of the top school districts. At Inspire, we have the unique situation where we have four 4K classrooms. 2 of them are district classrooms, and 2 of them are non-district classrooms. So many children that aren't in the Waunakee School District or weren't able to open enroll. The unique situation that we have is if we chose to go with the state's option, essentially all of those students would become 4K students. If we went with Waunakee's option without additional open enrollment, we might be, again, 2 district classrooms and 2 non-district classrooms. That for us would be a substantial difference in the hundreds of thousands. So I'd like to propose to consider additional open enrollment. I think it helps the district with having more pupils in the district, and I think it would also help some of our schools have additional 4K programs at the school. So it could be a win-win.
Thank you. And that ends the public comments. I know we have another 4K site here, but you guys are no. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And that is a topic that will be discussed later in the agenda, just so that you're aware of that. Moving on to reports, starting with our student report. We have our student council reps here tonight, Abigail and Alina. Welcome, ladies.
Hi. So we're gonna start out with talking about some music and drama related things. We just found out today that both of the one act plays are going to state this year, which is super cool. As far as we know, and like records wise, we are the first school in Wisconsin to have both a virtual and an in-person play go to state in the same year, which is super cool. We'll have state send-off performances during the school day for both of those shows, and then the virtual show is recording on, it's either Wednesday or Tuesday night next week. It just depends on what other events are going on, and anyone is open that's a public event. It'd be great to have a good audience there. So that is what's going on with one act. And then for some more choir things, there's a visit from UW Eau Claire. They're bringing their collegiate level choir on Thursday to have a little session with all the choirs and sing songs, which is very fun.
And then moving on, the band and choir concerts are both in December, and those are also open to everybody. And along with that, the fruit sale to support those happened recently, and it went really well. A lot of people enjoyed it.
And then also the choir and drama trip to Chicago is official. That's a trip to go watch the musical The Outsiders and go to an art museum in Chicago as well, which is a super fun experience for anyone involved in that.
Moving on to sports, the update for girls swim is going to state 1 single and 1 relay, and Megan Grindle now holds industry record.
And then girls volleyball also made it through the first round of state. They didn't make it all the way, but that was a fun event to watch. For cross country, Emily Berger also ran at state. She was an individual that went. And then football is playing in the semifinals this Friday. So if they win that, they go to state. And it'd be fun to see that. Maybe state's written on one piece of paper. And then moving on to clubs, FFA has a mission conference coming up. That's on the 13th and 14th. That's for all FFAs in Wisconsin. So it's a good gathering for everyone to get to. And then they just came back from national convention as well, which was in Indianapolis. And then DECA also hosted Pickleball for a Purpose this past weekend, which was just a fun event that they hosted to raise money for a charity, and anyone could join. It was just a $5 entry fee, and they had a little tournament with it.
Another club starting up right now is Forensics. It's holding workshops this week, and then sometime in December it will officially be starting.
Acapella has also been preparing to sing at the Holiday Light Parade. We do that every year. We are over by the train depot and just give a little performance there.
Student Council is working on a lot of their December stuff, and we've even been looking forward and already planning more formal. And then Best Buddies had Bucky Badger at the school the other week, which is a lot of fun.
And then something that we just wanted to highlight was YGB, which is the Youth Governance Program at the high school. It's just a really cool opportunity that a couple of upperclassmen took. They get to have say in actual political like issues or decisions that are being made. So it's really cool that we have representatives from our school that are able to go there and give the voice to the student population. That's all we have. November is a slower month.
You still brought us a lot of good information. Thank you. Any questions for our high school team here? Always great.
Thank
you.
Thanks so much.
Next we have our Warrior Spotlight for the evening. Dr.
Yes.
Brown, do you want to introduce this group?
Yes, we have our high school peer tutors here with us this evening. So if you all would come on up, you can sit right here. If you would start out by introducing yourselves. We have your slide deck here.
My name is Miles Lynn. I'm currently a senior, and I've been peer tutoring for 1 year.
And I'm Lily Strayer. I'm also a senior, and I've also been peer tutoring for about a year.
I'm Chris Sheeman, the library media specialist there, helping run the program, and this is my 5th year in the district at this point.
Thank you.
So thank you for the opportunity for us to get a chance to present about our program, how we help the students. Hopefully, we've prepared as best as we can. So I'll turn it over first to, I don't know which one of you decided to start us out on our first.
So our mission statement, or our goal as peer tutors and the Writing Center is to provide a resource for all students to improve their academic skills and gain confidence in all of their work that they do at school.
So through this, we have 2 routes. One is in person. As you can see, we've done 332 in-person helps, and online, we have done 351. In person is always better, as the collaboration is more fluid, and we can really dig into what students have in terms of ideas. In online, we are highly restricted to Google Docs' features such as comments and suggestions, but whereas in person, we can really dig into what the students know and better help them delineate their claims and ideas. About a year ago, we also got a TV screen that we can hook up for even smoother collaboration, making it available to students so peer tutors and students can see the same document at the same time. Even so, we do offer both options because some students do not have a study hall or cannot make it in before school for help.
So just a little background to it, because this program preceded me. This was handed off by Janine Ramsey, those of you that have been around for years. Janine retired as my predecessor and put a lot of hard work into it and did a great job giving me a lot of historical background. With the students, when they started it up, they went to the Madison College Writing Center to visit and see how their program worked and asked questions. Interviewed different stakeholders to figure out, like, what does our school need? How do we best serve and meet the needs of our students in a different manner and different way? And from what I could tell in those records, I believe that was about 2015, 2016. That's where I found, at least in the files, where it went dated back to. The way we end up with great students like Miles and Lily, and these are 2 of our seniors, is they were nominated by their teachers at the end of sophomore year. So I send out soliciting in April, early May to all of our staff and ask them, do you have students that you see and perceive as having great social skills, helping skills, academically strong, that would be great at working with other students in our school. And so they receive an actual USPS mail letter home on a nice letterhead, inviting them to the opportunity, because we want their parents to understand and guardians to understand that they have a special child, that a teacher nominated them and was looking at their child as that kind of a student in a positive manner. And so that's why it's not just an email out, because we want them to have that letter. If parents still have scrapbooks, I don't know. And so that's how we get there. And we don't have every student accept. We understand some just aren't comfortable. Some are very busy with their course load schedules or a lot of athletics or activities, and we understand that. But we do get, I bet if I looked, I bet it's 2/3 of them do accept. And so when Dr. Brown asked me, how many do we have? And I had to think in my head, I know when I send an email each week to them, I think it's 76 or so juniors and seniors. Some are more active than others. We'll get some that are coming off of their fall athletic seasons, getting a little bit less busy into the winter. Hopefully pick them up a little bit more regularly coming up.
Chris, is it all volunteer? They don't get any
It is
like
all
credit
volunteer.
or
So
anything, it's all volunteer?
We do have them log and collect their hours for things like National Honor Society, Spanish Honor Society, but they are completely volunteer, and we remind teachers and students of that, as you'll see in our approach here.
Yeah, so when we're with students, we're trying to model how we would do it specifically as students. So we're not like trying to be the teacher, we're trying to show them what like if I'm working on a problem, like a math problem, I would show them what I would do first and then see if they can understand that. And we provide feedback and like a different point of view if they don't understand it, and that a lot of times helps with them learning, especially when sometimes teachers are a little scary to go ask. So having another student to be able to ask questions is very nice.
We also do offer specific praise, so this would be just like telling them what they're doing well, because of course you don't want your entire feedback to be what you did wrong. So it's always nice to give in a little compliment there, here and there. We do also like to keep the work of our students private. Not everyone is comfortable with their writing and their writing style, so keeping privacy is important for us in order to create a good collaborative environment where students feel safe about their work.
And then benefits for peer tutors. Personally, I've gotten 10 times better at writing and reading as I've peer tutored other people's essays and things like that, because as they submit things, I'm able to like communicate with them and show them things that they could do better or things that they have done. And I've been able to like look at the rubric and see and like actually analyze it, instead of as a student, like my freshman and sophomore year, I wasn't really paying attention to the rubric all that much, which probably wasn't great, but I just wasn't paying attention as much, and so it's definitely gotten a little bit better. And also, it's better specifically for constructive feedback with, as Miles said, specific praise, and trying to give them suggestions that are more positive instead of all negative, which is nice.
This is a screenshot. I don't know if you can see or if you want to, Rebecca, actually click on that photo. It is a link to our Peer Tutor and Writing Center. We have this on our library media center page so that parents can see anyone that actually gets our weekly worry, or a lot of times Cindy has this right in there when I have peer tutor announcements. I've been featuring the faces of our peer tutors right now, trying to help parents and students get acquainted with them. But you can see our places that we show students. Here's how to see a peer tutor, how to sign up, how to submit online, or where to best visit us, along with our mission statement. All right, you can close out of that, Rebecca. Back to the next slide, please.
Sometimes students obviously will feel intimidated by us, especially by those of the underclass. So as a result, teachers often advertise us in their classrooms, either through flyers that they hang up or in their rooms or on bulletin boards. Some specific ones, we have Spanish for peer tutoring help. We also are advertised highly in the world history and English departments. Teachers may also invite students to reflect on their early semester work to see if they're accomplishing what they want in the class and if peer tutoring may be a necessary route for their improvement. We also feature an LMTC Instagram page as well as a weekly warrior page to let students see familiar faces. As you can see by the photo on the bottom, we do include sports and clubs that the peer tutors are a part of to help people make the connection between where they can find peer tutors and in their daily lives and clubs and activities.
If you guys have any questions for me or for them as actual peer tutors that you'd like to learn more about?
So do you have every study hall of peer teachers are available? Or are there some that, because of schedules, it doesn't fit in?
Good question. Many we do, but I can think of always two specific periods, and it's one of those situations by how the schedule gets put together where we have a lot of 9th and 10th graders in study halls because the teachers are all teaching all of our juniors and seniors that happen to be peer tutors and they're not available. So we then encourage them strongly to either use the online portion if they really need to, or come during contact time before school. These two are very good at being here every morning at 7:45 as part of the before school group. And we almost always, except when we have a National Honor Society meeting, have someone during our flexi contact time. We had a HS Tuesday, which is why I had to wait. Good question.
Do you, is it strictly for writing, or do you, I think, did somebody say math? I mean,
Yeah.
do you do other subjects
We do
too?
all of the subjects, so
All
if they come to us,
subjects.
if there's more than one peer tutor there, like if someone is better at math or someone is better at English, we can like
Okay,
switch off and go between people, so.
nice. And
Miles
do-
doesn't know this, but he was requested specifically to help a student in physics today.
Very good. So when you sign up to do a peer tutor, do you do the whole 85 minutes, or do you just do a portion, or?
So they can come when, like, we normally sign up for like an entire like class period.
Okay.
And so we're just there the whole time, and so they can come whenever they have questions. And depending on how long the question is, or if we're working on an entire essay, it can take a decent amount of time.
Okay,
We do have some peer tutors that come half of the time, and we make sure we put that, put that in parentheses, because
okay,
as busy students, they might want to use the first half of their study
Yeah.
hall
yeah.
themselves to catch up on some work before they come down.
Awesome program.
All right.
Anybody have any other questions? Excellent. Very informative. I had no idea how expansive it had become, so great.
All right. Well, we want to thank you all for your time today, for joining us for our Warrior Spotlight. Chris, first, thank you for continuing the legacy that has already started. And to Miles and Maria, thank you all very much. Appreciate you. Nice job. Thank you.
Awesome. You guys are ready to come up. Thank you. Next, we have our WTA reps to give a teacher report. So I'll just let you guys introduce yourselves.
We are the WTA representatives from Heritage Elementary School. I'm Jessica Stortz.
I'm Beth Mitchell.
Kyle Garland.
And we're just here to share a few notable things that have happened in the district in the recent weeks that we want to share as celebrations with you all.
So the first one is a great appreciation that we have the Ho Chunk flag flying at our buildings.
And then next, we recently had our district food drive, which was very successful. Our representatives from the intermediate school shared specifically that at their school, they, Amy Frank's estimate was somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 pounds of food and other necessities. And that I think she said it doesn't hurt that, you know, the one kid from each class that brings the most materials or food gets to throw away whipped cream pie in a teacher's face.
Another celebration and appreciation we have is for the information that's been shared with families about food accessibility, and that information is continuing to be shared through the Peach Jar flyers and building weekly newsletters.
And then finally, Prairie School reached their third tier goal for the Prairie Stomp and is celebrating with a movie later in November.
Awesome.
What we have.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you for joining us.
Thank you.
Next is to do any board reports of any meetings or trainings or events that anybody around the table attended that would like to share. Yes,
I
Heather.
have two. I did visit Jessica Schwartz's art class a
Oh,
couple of Mondays ago, right away in the morning. So I decided I'd like every Monday morning to start like that.
that's great.
And then last week, I had Waunakee County Executive and candidate for Governor David Crowley to my preschool for a roundtable discussion on childcare and school funding and just where we are after the budget. And Steve was there and got to sit in a little chair. Yes, so those two things.
Great, thank you for doing that. Anybody else have anything? All right.
I'm wearing a different hat for that. I wanted to mention.
Okay, all right.
Moving on, this is the time of the year where we begin our discussion or announcements on our spring board election. Each year, some seats on the board are up for re-election, usually 2. Every third year, we have 3. This year, we have 2 people on the board up for re-election. Dawn Hendricks, sitting next to me for the Village of Waunakee. And my seat is available for the town of Westport, City of Middleton, and City of Madison, if you're in those residential subdivisions of our community school district. Anyway, if anybody in the public is interested in running, if you live in those 2 jurisdictions, you can pick up papers beginning December 1st. Is December 1st on a weekend? Might be.
Let's see.
December 1st. I think it might be Sunday. Monday?
It's a Monday.
It's Monday.
Okay.
So starting December 1st, you could pick up papers. That's all I have to say. Okay. Moving on to American Education Week, which is November 17 through 21. I want to thank Mark and Annie Blackburn for putting together, again, a wonderful letter to be sent to our staff. And at this time, we just kind of make comments if you want to add, delete, or anything, and then it will be sent out, I think, next week already is the 17th. And I do really appreciate, I thought it was wonderfully written and inclusive and all those great things. Anybody have any comments? Yeah, really nice job. Thank you for doing that always. Moving on to committee reports, starting with the DEI committee, which met last Monday, I believe.
Yes, we met and Tim and Tiffany went over information that they'll go over again tonight.
Okay. So nothing that, other than that, okay. The budget committee, which met on Friday.
Okay, yeah, a major portion of that was discussing 4K options, which Steve will be covering in just a second. And then, after that, we had a vote on natural gas, for our next budget, and so we'll talk about that when we're finished. So Steve, you want to go to 4K?
Sure, thank you, Mark. So the board is jumping right back into budget planning. So as you know, on Thursday, October 30th, we finished the 25-26 school year. And then we're starting right away, jumping into 26-27 planning. There's a very important topic that has been placed on our agenda to work through as soon as we possibly can, and that's related to a new state program that was included in the state budget related to 4K. So Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind opening up the first file, please. Just blow it up a little bit. Thank you, Rebecca. So this document that's included in your board book is just a brief summary of one of the 25-27 state budget changes. This one is referring to a program called Get Kids Ready. This program starts in the 26-27 school year. You're certainly welcome to read the information that's included here, but one of the items that I've been pointing out is under number 1, and you could go down and look at the very last bullet point. Providers may not participate in Get Kids Ready if they also contract with a public school district to provide 4K in the same year. So basically what that's saying is that this new state program is requiring a choice. So a choice has to be made to either contract with a public school district or contract with the state for the Get Kids Ready program. So we know that that's there. We know that a choice has to be made. The centers are in a difficult spot because they have to make a choice early in 2026. And as school boards, we're going to be asking you to move up the typical timeline as far as what we're going to be doing for our planning for 26-27. So we're going to be asking for this process to move up sooner than it would in a typical year. So you can see some other information about the program. Rebecca, if you'd scroll back up for just a moment. One other important part is you do see there's a statement there, annual funding of $66 million supports the program. So there's a new allocation of resources coming from the state that's going to be provided for this program. So it's an important element for in the state of Wisconsin for 4-year-old education. So I just wanted you to know some background on the program itself, so you can take a look at that. For public school districts, this is something that not a lot of schools have had on their radar as they were looking at the 25-27 state budget, fundamentally because this wasn't included in the DPI portion of the budget. If you go back as board members and look at probably your first WASB summary of the state budget, there wasn't much discussion on this topic. And the school superintendents and Dr. Brown's group started talking about this towards the end of August. And so school districts have been, taking a look at this as they're starting their planning, not for 25-26, but 26-27. So at the budget committee meeting, Dr. Brown did share a timeline as well that we want to discuss with you. Rebecca, would you mind jumping out of this and pulling up the timeline? So this timeline has November, December, and January on it. A couple things to note is this week, Wednesday, we have a virtual 4K director and school district administration plan meeting at 3:30. Dr. Brown did ask Mark to join us as the treasurer of the board. And obviously, this discussion has been started at the budget committee level. So I think you said yes, right, Mark? Yep. All right, so Mark's joining us Wednesday at 3:30 so that the board can be represented to hear the conversation. The point of that meeting is to have an open dialogue with the 4K centers in the community to understand more from their perspective on the new program, their thoughts about partnering with the school district, their thoughts on partnering with the state, so that ultimately we would be able to communicate that information back to the school board. Another important date, next week, Wednesday, we have 2 sessions on just in general school finance. They're going to be very well attended. I can just feel it right now. I think it's going to be popular, very popular events. We have 2 sessions. We have a morning one at 9 and one at 6. We're absolutely open to having communication about 4K as part of that presentation. So that'll be an opportunity for us to talk not only about 25-26, but 26-27, and engage with the community on just the topic of school district funding at large. So that'll be coming up soon. We are planning on asking the budget committee on, Rebecca has a date now of December 1st, to come back to this topic. So that's a Monday morning, December 1st. To then be able to consider having the topic as an action item on December 8th, where we would look to ask the board to consider 26-27 4K contracts. So obviously that's a different timeline that we would be considering. And again, the point behind that is the centers have to make a decision of their own about participating in the state program or partnering with the district by February 1st. And then we're also looking to then have an in-person meeting with the 4K directors on December 15th. Again, the purpose of that discussion would be as the centers are trying to evaluate their options for the 26-27 school year. We want to remain in communication with everyone, so shortly after, the week after the board meeting, our intent is to have another opportunity for dialogue. And then we're going to probably, depending again on whether the board decides to approve a contract on the 8th, we're going to request a decision prior to winter break so that everyone would have notification of where, how everybody's planning for the 26-27 school year. So that's a calendar that we're proposing, at least at this point, to really keep the dialogue going for both November and December. Rebecca, if you want to jump out of this for a moment. And then if you want to open the middle document. So at the budget committee meeting last Friday, we spent some time talking through what you see on the screen right now. At a high level, I just want to share some general information with the board. I know 5 of the 7 of you were in the meeting or were at the meeting last Friday, so that you did see a lot of this information. But at a high level, we're looking at scenarios for 26-27 that would be what I would call our typical budget planning process, so just assuming the normal process of estimating enrollment and beginning to look at the budget planning process. And then we looked at some other scenarios to help show the budget committee the range of possibilities for 26-27 and then what that would look like. What's important to note is the counting of 4-year-old kindergarten 4K students in the impact on both the district's budget and the impact on what's called state equalization aid. So state equalization aid is the main source of funding we do receive from the state. And state equalization aid becomes a major issue for all property taxpayers in the community. In the state's funding formula, if state equalization aid decreases, it is made up for by a property tax levy increase. So those two factors work hand in hand. And in general, the loss of any student count results in the district becoming more property wealthy in the state equalization aid formula, which then does result in a loss of state equalization aid. So in our case, as we look at the different scenarios and different levels of counts for 4-year-old kindergarten students, the state equalization aid loss is significant. The district's budget has a different impact than the state equalization aid loss because they're really 2 different things. So we talked through that with the committee. The committee is asking us to explore some additional information that we will be doing before the December 1st budget committee meeting. But I just wanted to share with the community and the entire board at this point that we're looking at various scenarios. We are exploring a scenario where we would increase our district's investment into 4K in an attempt to continue the community partnerships. And the community partners obviously have to make a decision between partnering with the district or partnering with the state. And so we did talk through that option and what that would look like. And we did talk about the board considering starting there. So instead of exploring the other options that you see on the screen, starting with the option of increasing our investment in 4K. That does mean listening to the 4K centers this week and having dialogue about what is important to them for continuing those partnerships, which is why we have that meeting this week and we're gonna have a continued open dialogue, but we've run through a range of scenarios. These certainly aren't all the scenarios, but it begins the conversation. And I think the bottom line to just note is, because of the fact that the state budget did create an option to partner with either districts or the state, there is a potential significant impact ultimately to property taxpayers depending on how this shakes itself out. Other school districts are now starting to talk about this. I did get some contact today, as an example, from Sun Prairie. This is now, I think, on more schools' radars, that this is a major element in their budget planning for 26-27. So I'm sure as board members, you're gonna be hearing more about this topic as other school boards are starting to understand that this was included in the state budget and are starting to enter into 26-27 planning, and are starting to evaluate their next school year moving forward. We wanted to bring this to your attention as soon as we possibly could, and want to continue having that dialogue with you in the near future. Where we left it with the budget committee was that we were gonna have the meeting this week with the 4K centers. We're gonna have the community meetings next week, budget committee in early December, and then requesting board consideration of a 26-27 contract at the December board meeting. So with that being said, I'd offer any board members on the budget committee if you had any comments that you wanted to share as well from your perspective.
From my perspective, I think the committee was very much in favor of continuing our partnerships with the 4K, our 4K partners. We view it as a valuable relationship. It enhances not only our students, but our community. And so we would like to try to pursue that as far as we can. We think it's in academic best interest of our students to continue this relationship. But there is, we didn't ask for this, you didn't ask for this, but there clearly are some significant fiscal impact on our district if we can't reach that agreement. With the chart that we have here, I think it's important to point out that the base scenario is where we're currently at, and as you go to each year, we take some very significant hits in the equalization formula, $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million. Whatever the scenario is on this chart, the impact from the 4K decision is in addition to that number in the base level. So just as an example, if I look at scenario 2, when you look at the equalization aid in 27-28, by that 4K decision, if that's what it would be, we would lose almost $2 million in addition to what we're already going to lose. And in terms of tax base, that's about a 4% increase on the levy. And so it's a really tough situation for all of us to deal with. I'm just hoping we can reach something that's mutually beneficial and the community wins out because of that.
Nicely said, Mark, yeah. I think the general consensus is we want to continue the partnerships. We see great value in it for all of our students, and the consistency of the education at that level, I think, is hugely important. It's just a win-win for all of our kids in our community, and like Mark said, we didn't ask for this problem. We didn't decide these things, and I appreciate hearing the little increase that you have seen in your reimbursement from the beginning to the end, and that's all driven by our reimbursement also per kid has so not kept up with inflation. And you know, if we can just spread that message to people who can make a difference in getting funding to at least keep up with inflation would help all of us in this room. So, again, it's an unfortunate situation, but please know, we very, very much value the partnerships. Anybody else? All right, so you have what you need, Steve, to continue your mission on this topic? So we do have one item that we need to vote on, right? The natural gas.
Yes, thank you, Joan. So there is one action item on the agenda tonight. We did review at the Budget Committee meeting the topic of our natural gas purchasing program. So for the last couple of years, the board has been willing to purchase natural gas in advance of the heating season. There is an attachment that was provided that shows the fiscal impact in the last round of the board approving this purchasing program, which did save taxpayer dollars. So the savings were around $15,000 for participating in this program. Both of the years that we participated in this program have been financially successful. So one of the things that we did review with the Budget Committee was consideration of increasing our involvement in this program by having a 75% purchasing level of our expected natural gas usage and extend it for a longer period of time. Rebecca, would you mind opening that chart for just a moment? And then if you could, yeah, thank you. You could look at the very bottom. So you can see the pricing, and just so you know, this pricing was current as of last Thursday. This does change daily. You can see there's a December 25 to October 26 period of time, which provides an additional financial savings for pre-purchasing gas for a longer period of time. Our usage of natural gas drops pretty significantly when we get outside of the winter heating season. So the commitment for locking in is not that significant, but there is some additional savings being offered for looking at a longer period of time. So the recommendation from the Budget Committee last Friday was to look at the December 25 to October 26 timeframe and to look at 75% of our expected usage. And when you look at the chart above, where I was referencing the 15,000 is in the second chart to the far right. It says if 100% market price, and it's got market price versus actual. And you can just see all of the numbers identified there. So if we were to purchase more gas in advance and we were to purchase it for a longer period of time, we would be having a greater budget certainty, less financial risk, and would have a slight additional savings for going a longer period of time. So that was the recommendation of the committee, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Is it possible next year to look at that term starting immediately in October and running not as far into the summer? Because if you look at when the prices are the highest, it's classically October through April. And that is when you get the biggest bang for your buck on hedging.
Yeah, so we've traditionally have kept this topic towards this time of the year, but we could pivot and have it earlier in the year, so I'll write a note to do that.
Okay.
So if you're in agreement, I would take a motion for that directive to Steve.
So moved.
Second.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Next, our administrative reports, being at summer school. And I see Sheila's right up here. Thank you.
Here we go. First of all, thank you again for letting me come early in November to not only report, but then also to forecast for the next year. It helps us get ready for all that we do. So first, just looking at the summer school in review, it was a really successful summer school for us. We had a lot of participation. We have the chart. And one of the ways that we have FTE is attendance and student count is a little bit different than it is during the school year. During summer school, DPI has guidelines. It's about enrollment and the minutes of participation and attendance. And so I just did a little explanation there that it takes 48,600 minutes to equal out to an FTE. And this year we had a really nice increase. I gave you 10 years. I always kind of like you to see the patterns. One of the things that also benefited us this year is we had 24 days to count. There are some pieces that start before that. There's a few after, but for that main chunk of time, to have 24 days makes a difference, and it always just depends when July 4th falls. So we were lucky that way. We went up by 17 FTE, which is huge. In the highlights, I shared a little bit about the growth. We know that our school district has, like over those past 10 years, has also grown. And while the district has grown by 9.5%, summer school has grown by 23%. So we hope that we're offering more programs that the students and families want to participate in, and that they stay engaged and actually do attend. So we're really pleased with that. We do always look a lot at metrics. So we track every class that we offer and how full of a participation rate it has. That helps us know with those metrics, where do we need to add classes? And we had looked at numbers at the intermediate and added a couple of classes there, so that was really positive for us. That also helped. The state legislature also had passed something with online personal finance. And so Brian Borowski and Tim Schell worked together to put together how we might be able to serve our students. That actually was a big bump up of high interest to offer that online in the summer and help them make the new requirements that they have by that piece of legislation. It'll probably be a temporary piece for a couple of years unless, Brian Borowski, the high school team, and Tim Schell think it needs to be an ongoing, but it will be offered again, we believe, this next year because it was looked at for a 2-year piece to help that gap so that kids could make those graduation requirements. It is an enrichment course and it was highly tapped into. Of course, when we have more classes, we also have to have a little bit more staffing, so that piece was in there. Remedial, we still need to take a look at, we haven't increased our remedial recommendations. It really has stayed nice and steady for those that are recommended, that percent, and then those that attend. But we do need to take a look at what can we do to make things even more palatable, exciting, whatever it might be for our high school where they're trying to do credit remediation. And so we'll see if we can do a few more things just to draw in a few more students to get those credits over the summer. And the high school does do a really great job of identifying students and whether it makes sense for them to do a summer piece or whether they need to do the course over. They identify, they personalize, but just how can we have those students attend and really take advantage of that and get their credits. Looking ahead, we know that we're hopeful that alternate transportation will have some new pieces for us. It's really hard with our earliest learners when they could choose a different location for 4 days out of all the different days in our week. And it's also, especially for elementary, we're broken into 2 3-week sessions. Kids can come all 6 weeks, and the majority do, but that also means our bus routes change in 12 days. And so when you have littles who can't always articulate, it's tricky. So we're hoping for some improvements in that area. We know that we've been told we're using the new middle school this summer for summer school, so that'll be a really nice kind of segue, I think, for middle school staff and students to get to know that building and some ins and outs, so that's exciting for us. I already talked a little bit about the high school piece. And then there's little things that you would have seen in the report that we're looking to make some improvements on for this next year. Expanding our summer school badges to include some of our paraeducators, people who need that door access. We did it for staff this year, for our teaching staff, taking a look at that. Again, continuing to do some of the things like expand adaptive swim lessons, looking for a couple of more improvements for our daily attendance so that students and families who need our translation services, it's really seamless. Right now, our registration program translates for them, but to have that attendance piece and calling would be helpful. We also are putting into place some better communications so that if we do need to contact families during the summer, instead of blanketing out to all Infinite Campus families, which we've always been able to do, we can do some more pinpoint lists and have those uploaded right from the very start and get specific. And then this year, during the school year, we're gonna take some time to review our registration vendor and see if that's still the best fit for us. If we need to go in other directions, it's great to review that. And there's a lot of stakeholders who have important pieces around our registration program. It drives a lot of things, like it could be health, it could be attendance, it could be our DPI report, letting families load up their families, so just all those different components. What does our IT department need? So look at all the stakeholders and go through that. And for this next summer, it will still be the registration system we have, and it may be them in the future, but we'll take a look and go through a process with that as well. So that's really the highlights, the review, and so I don't know if you have questions for me before we go on to summer class offerings for 2026.
Sheila, in your camp invention, you said you have a third camp. During the same week, you just utilize more of the building, so you bring in enough kids for 3 full groups. Is that correct? Is that how that goes?
I do, yeah.
Wow.
So
this was, is this the first year you had 3 camps going on?
This was the second year we ran 3 camps. So just an interesting piece on camp invention in general. First of all, if you ever want to, like, you ever have time in your schedule and it runs full day, it's 5 days a week, and we run that the week before now. We switched that out, I think 2 years ago, and it was just with our calendar, like what we needed to be able to do to fit it in with different building projects and capital maintenance, because they do take over the building. It is super deep level science for our students that are entering grades 1 through 6, and then it's layered in. We have leadership in training, and those are our students who are going into grades 7, 8, 9, and then we also have our teaching assistant program for our high schoolers who are older. But it really is deep science, very hands-on, a lot of energy, and a lot of creative ideas. It's not just one way. So it has a lot of great collaboration, and I would love, I'll send you a little invite just to remind you when that week comes over. Pop over. It really is incredible. I think that the National Inventors Hall of Fame, who puts together the curriculum, does a great job in really understanding the different levels of learning that happen in those grade levels. And, you know, there's a newsletter that goes home every day, so parents are seeing high-level science vocabulary and concepts that their students are learning. They rotate through 5 classes. They do on-site lunch, on-site snack. It is exhausting, good learning and fun. So, but yeah, we have that also, like, has been a huge, when we went to that 3rd camp those 2 years ago, that was a big boost that you would have seen in the FTE at that point from adding that 3rd camp.
Thank you. Exciting.
That is Violet's favorite week of summer. My daughter has gone the last 2 years and loves it so much.
All 3 of my kids have done it. My oldest now did leadership this last year, so she really, really enjoyed it. Great program.
Great staff.
All right, so the next offerings.
Yeah, so class offerings coming up this next year. We do have the class is there and it takes your action to go ahead and approve those. The reason that we do this in November is that when you approve classes, we can do some of those finishing pieces on our registration program, but it also cues us up to be able to hire staff in January. And for those of you that are newer, we always hire our own staff first, and that's both teaching staff, classified staff. We give them a window, it opens up on January 1st. Even if we're not in session, they can go in and make that application and get that in. And so principals in the buildings and different directors begin their hiring process of our own staff first, and then it gets us out in the market. It's really competitive. Our program is really large. Waunakee has one of the largest in the state, and clearly we are not the largest school district. So when you think about the Dane County area, it's been important for us to make sure that we're out there early and we hire early. So our staff will know in December if you approve these courses that they can, here are our courses. We'll be starting up January 1st if you're interested. Here's when it goes public outside of hours, and then we also contact previous teachers or classified staff who have worked for us in the past. And as I'm looking at this right now, and it says up there 2025 summer school class offerings, should you choose to approve these, and in the fine print it talks about 26, 27, and in that title there, we do really mean 2026. So if anybody wishes to note that, if you're having a motion later, that would be great, and my apologies for that. I thought we had taken care of that, so.
Sheila, do all your classes fill, like with the online registration, are they?
Do they all fit in?
Fill up.
So we keep metrics on everything. Remedial doesn't fill, because if a child has been recommended, if a student has been recommended for remedial, we're gonna make sure we have the staffing to meet those needs, right? But yes, other courses do. What's really nice is we keep track of how fast things fill. Parents, if any of you, like some of you do have students or children, your own children in it, you can fill your favorites cart, you click the button, you're good to go. It's very fast. So yes, they do fill. It usually, it's not though that at any level, a parent isn't going to be able to have their child participate in summer school.
Okay.
Sometimes, what families have really enjoyed doing is it's an opportunity, especially in classes where it's broader than one grade level. They might arrange for their own children or their neighbors. I'm gonna try and sign up for arts and crafts, but I want it the first session and I want it in slot 2. So like they try and organize some of that. Some of that may fill where they have to have it at a different time. But I know that they like to be able to do that because classes are offered at multiple times.
So you want us to approve this list so you can go start staffing. So, anybody want to make a motion for that?
So moved. Pardon me, so moved.
Second.
Anybody want to ask any more questions?
Can I participate in the escape room challenge?
So I wrote the curriculum for that.
Okay.
I'm pretty stoked about that one. Yeah, that filled right away, by the way. Yeah, that was really, really fun. And honestly, there are some of the escape room challenges, like our public library has some offerings, where even during the school year, some of our students, at least I know for elementary and intermediate, have participated. And so, yeah, that was fun. Yeah. To go through the challenges. Part of it too is to also learn how to put one together. So.
Does Camp Invention still fill up really quickly even with the additional section? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I
Really
know
quick.
the first year I was told by like other parents, like you have to be sitting at your computer when it opens or you won't get in.
Well, here's what I'll say about Camp Invention. That's why we went to a third camp,
Right.
right? Because what would happen is we'd have a waiting list for that would have about 120. And people do change their plans and do change their minds, so people do get off that wait list, but we could never get through the whole thing. And so just talking with, you know, my custodian and how we could make all this work, because it comes with a lot of stuff. It's also
Yeah.
about upcycling, but we still had spots, you know, a couple weeks into it, and then when we went through our wait list, because again, people change their plans or something comes up, almost everybody who wanted it got it. And those were people who were approaching it weeks later, so it wasn't just from that night from, you know,
That's
6
good to
o'clock is the time. Yeah, and we stagger registration.
So to that point, Gia, has there ever been a consideration to go into a lottery approach? So that whether you're first or last, that all the names are just thrown around and you come up and fill it up?
If we found a way to do that, we could, and what would you have the window to be? That's what we run into a little bit, is what would that window be? What we know is we're able to get, when you take a look at the totality of everything, we're really able to get in that. It might make sense for the wait list to be able to do that. So maybe that would be something to think about too, get everybody in. And then I could also take a look, like I said, we were able to get through really just about everybody on that wait list because people's plans do change and we're able to do that. I'd have to take a look on how we could do that.
Well, clearly, the number that are excluded would determine that, because you're looking at 1 or 2 versus a massive amount.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
why the addition of the third camp
Yeah.
really made that difference. The other thing is Camp Invention gives you a range of students that you can have to hold, like get their curriculum and hold the full camp and all of that. And we do max that out. We make sure we do that. And if ever we needed, there was one year where like it was like 3 more kids and I was able to call up, and we have the track record of running it successfully all those years, and they let us do that overage. So I certainly think it's single digits, but I would have to take a look at this. Without the third camp, it was more problematic.
All right, we do have a motion on the floor. Any other comments? If not, all in favor of approving the summer school list, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. Thank you very much. And moving on to DEI presentation.
Well, first, before we start, just, this isn't the same exact presentation we did for the DEI subcommittee earlier in the week, 'cause we dug into more data and it was a longer presentation. So this is just kind of an overview of our DEI steering committee activities for this year, but if you want to dig into the data pieces, I'd encourage you to go watch or at least look at the PowerPoint from that meeting as well, just so you know it's not the same exact things. All right, let's see. There we go. Just overview, obviously, you know the committee structure that we have our board DEI committee. We also have then an internal DEI steering committee that's made up of teachers, administrators from across the district. And then we have our comprehensive 3-year DEI plan, which has been revised, and we're going to be rolling out this Thursday at our next DEI steering committee meeting. This is an overview. So kind of our 3 areas of focus, and again, this ties back to a lot of our disproportionality work, so the presentation that we gave to the DEI subcommittee last week. So we really want to focus on increased sense of belonging, and you've probably heard a lot about that over this past year in terms of our DEI work, as well as improving student outcomes for a variety of demographic groups. Specifically for our disproportionality plan, which is where the funding comes from for our DEI work, we're specifically focused on looking at outcomes for African American students because that's the area where we are identified. But as our DEI steering committee works, we're really looking at all demographic groups. So we're talking about increased sense of belonging for all of our demographic groups. For instance, we just had a focus group in October, just with parents of students with disabilities. So we collected some data from them about belonging. We are doing some surveys, a variety of other pieces. So just so you know that our work is beyond just what's in the disproportionality plan, to really look at all of our groups and how is everyone feeling in terms of belonging in our system. Same with improving academic outcomes. We know we have gaps in racial disparities in terms of academic functioning. We also have those gaps with students with disabilities and some of our EL students. So we're looking at all of those demographic groups. And then our goal in terms of decreasing behavioral incidents is looking at how are we looking at behavior in terms of a response to intervention, and looking at how we can improve our numbers. And again, if we're looking at our disproportionality plan, we're specifically talking about African American students, who are about 2 times more likely to have an externally managed behavior incident, meaning that a principal, assistant principal, or student services staff is involved in the response, not just something that's within the classroom. So one big area we're going to dive into this year is looking at our multi-tiered systems of support. And this is an area, it's a framework that essentially every school district uses. It has tiered levels of instruction, and it has an academic side, and it also has a behavioral side. So when we look at a universal instruction, we'll say for reading and math, we have our tier 1, which is instruction that everybody gets. We have tier 2, which might be small group interventions with the teacher. It might be around reading, might be around math, might be a social skills group for behavior. It might be an anxiety group. It might be a coping strategies group. Could look like a variety of different things. And then tier 3 is that more intensive targeted intervention in small groups. And again, in reading and math, it would be like with your reading specialist, your math interventionist, or maybe with student services staff in terms of a behavioral intervention. So our goal for this year to really dig into looking at how are we serving kids' academic needs and how can we look at those gaps is to really examine this system and determine if we have any bias in this system. Because really, this is kind of the, I don't want to say, it's not a funnel to special ed, but this is the system in which a team would decide, you know, is this student, you know, we're not seeing advancement or adequate progress in academics after multiple interventions and you know, multiple data points. Then that team is the one who decides, well, do we think we need to go to referral for special education? Same is true for behavior. You know, we've had multiple behavior interventions in place, we've collected data, we've set goals. If they're not making adequate progress, then that team is going to decide, do we need to do a referral for special education or not? So we really want to look at this system to determine how we can make sure that we're meeting kids' needs and intervening early, whether it's academics or behavior, but then also looking at consistency across schools, especially across the elementary schools, that theoretically you should be able to take a student and drop them into any 3 of our elementary schools and the outcome should be the same, whether it's intervention in academics or in behavior. And there shouldn't necessarily be a whole bunch of referrals from one building and then none from another. It should essentially be similar across those 3 buildings. So this is kind of a work group area. So we're meeting as a DEI steering committee, but we also have a separate work group that's going to be working on this piece. We have an MTSS guide that we have had, it used to be called the RTI guide, looking at response to intervention. We've done some revisions. We planned to work on this last year, then we had Act 20 come into being, and we wanted to make sure that the academic side of our MTSS guide also included all of the requirements around Act 20 as well. So we really want to focus in on that behavior piece this year and being able to put this guide out by the end of this year to look at that system. Sense of belonging, we're doing a lot around professional development. We're expanding the use of restorative practices. We actually have a large group of teachers in K-6 right now that are doing a book study around restorative practices. Our associate principals and student services staff have already been trained in restorative practices, and we're looking at rolling this out in January to all staff for like a foundational training, 2 to 3 hour training for all staff. So that's a big piece of building community, and I think a lot of people hear restorative practice, restorative, and they think restorative justice, which means, you know, how you might handle a conflict. But restorative practices is really about how you build community in your classroom. So it's the idea that before you can restore something, you have to have a community to restore it back to. So it's really about sense of belonging for every student in that classroom, more so than it is like restorative justice, which some people get those terms mixed up. So we also last year did belonging and engagement walks through the district. We contracted with the Center for All, and we really focused on two things. We focused on the educational environment and building relationships with students. And so we went with teams into all 6 buildings, looked at all areas, so even lunchrooms, hallways, greeting kids in the morning when they walk in the door, or when they're getting on the bus at the end of the day, and really looked at, are there areas where we could improve in terms of educational environment and also building relationships. So that's an area we're working on this year, and several schools have some of the data from our belonging engagement walks involved in their school improvement plans, and are working on that this year. And then this spring, we're gonna do the same exact walks again, focused on those 2 areas to look at growth across our buildings too. And of course, we had some really strong data in terms of strengths across our district too. So we have something new this year called Equal Opportunity Schools. So I'm gonna let Tim talk about that in just a minute. I've got a slide on that as well. We also in January, as part of our training day in January, we're gonna create some You Belong statements that are gonna be consistent across the district as well. We're also working with leadership around implicit bias and how that implicit bias shows up in our day-to-day decision-making across schools. We have done some implicit bias training before in terms of personal reflection, and we're trying to take that personal reflection and move it towards, you know, how does this look in daily decision-making? So that's kind of our next step with leadership as well. And then we have some partnerships, which all of these are the same partnerships we've had in previous years, other than Equal Opportunity Schools is our new one. So Tim's gonna talk a little bit about that one. But our Multicultural Student Achievement Network, we've partnered with them for many years, and actually our student team is leaving this week to go to Virginia to go to their national conference. So super exciting. So we'll make sure that they come back and share a report with our DEI steering committee and with the board committee as well. So Center for All will be partnering with them again. They aren't called the Center for All anymore, but we are contracting with the same individuals we contracted with last year. So a little change there. PERTS Elevate, we'll continue with that, and the Urban Collaborative as well. So consistent partnerships from last year. So I will let Tim talk a little bit about Equal Opportunity Schools since it's new and he's the expert.
Mark, did you have a question before we got into this?
Sorry.
If you don't mind, so I know it's happening with Elevate to a certain extension, so is it maintaining what's been, or is it expanding to include more teachers at the various levels?
Yeah, the goal is to expand, and we're down to intermediate school right now in terms of participation.
Okay.
Maybe to defer to Tim in terms of like what percentage. I know a pretty large percent of high school staff have gone through the process, the cycle, but I'll let maybe Tim speak to that a little bit more too.
Right, so, you know, just real briefly, for a few years, participation in PERTS Elevate was part of the high school improvement plan. So we, over a 2-year period, breaking each year into semesters because we're semesterized at the high school, all departments participated in Elevate over a 2-year period. It's been on an invitational, highly recommended basis at the intermediate and middle school. And we've seen, you know, really good participation, growing participation, repeat participation, particularly at intermediate and middle schools. This year it came off the high school SIP. We've seen participation at the high school drop. We'll see where it goes second semester. You know, one meeting I had today was with Lynn Stenroos and Mike Dreyer, instructional coaches, middle school, high school. Our instructional coaches for intermediate, Leah Zwetler, Lynn at the middle school, Mike at the high school, lead our PERTS Elevate communities of practice. And one thing we track, so there's 2 things that I think are interesting to look at with PERTS, Mark. One is how many teachers are participating, and how do students view it? So one of the questions is part of the PERTS survey instrument that we run periodically, because it's a continuous improvement cycle, is kind of the program fidelity benchmark. And it's, I'm paraphrasing it because I don't have the survey text in front of me, but for the student, do you feel your participation in this is going to have a meaningful impact in how your classroom operates? And the goal is to have that at the 70% level. If 70% of your students express a confidence in that what they're engaging in is going to have an impact, that's considered the benchmark. And Lynn was mentioning this year we've reached 82%, it's our highest and well above that benchmark. And so that tells us, because again, students have, we've been maintaining a consistent focus on this work for a few years. And as students have had more opportunities to participate in these continuous improvement cycles at the classroom level, they see their voice having an impact. They are seeing the plans they develop in concert with their teachers bearing some fruit, and that makes them more confident to engage in the work going forward. So that's positive. Again, I think it is conducive to reflective practice as a teacher, and it's a standard model that you don't have to develop on your own. So I think it's a good model, but that's some of what we're seeing there. So Equal Opportunity Schools is a new partnership. It's working in a space that's been on our roadmap for a while. So if you think back to the ad hoc committee from several years ago, they had a variety of recommendations. And one of those was looking at differences in participation in rigorous coursework and asking the district to look at what barriers could exist and how we could encourage opportunity. Tiffany mentioned that our MSAN student leadership group is going to their national in Northern Virginia this week. 2 years ago, when they went to their national, they come back with some goals and an action plan to engage the district in. Their goal 2 years ago was, again, access to rigorous coursework at the high school. So our pathway to this partnership was paved by, and those of you who are on previous installments of the DEI committee will remember in August, September of 2023, we had a whole grid with recommendations. This type of work was part of that. So it has taken us a while to get there, but this is grounded on those earlier recommendations and grounded on the work of our MSAN student group. So we're excited to finally bring this to fruition. So there's a lot here, and if you really want to do a deep dive into this, we talked about it a little bit more at the DEI committee, but certainly would invite you to come in for a one-on-one conversation. At the core of this, we have some data questions, and this organization has been in existence for about 15 years working nationally, so it's a proven model to look at where you have participation gaps. Now, so we all make choices in our lives based on our interests and where we, what we enjoy and where we want to go. And sometimes we find that to be an easy path to pursue. Sometimes we find barriers, not even formal barriers. And sometimes what we want to do and our confidence aren't always one and the same. So part of this is looking at our data to see where we have participation gaps. That doesn't necessarily tell the whole story, but it tells us where we might want to focus our efforts on a little more. And I'll just put a plug in. Tomorrow, the state report cards are publicly released. If you look towards the back of the high school's report card and the district's report card, there is a section that breaks down student performance in AP, dual credit courses, industry-related credentials, and work-based learning. These are a whole set of activities we know are supportive of student success post-graduation. And we see gaps in participation between the way that student groups are depicted on the report card. We see gaps. Even within those, you will see that our groups that participate at lower levels still generally participate at higher levels than their peers statewide. But for example, if you were to look at the participation of our multilingual students or English learners, the participation rate of our multilingual students in AP here in Waunakee is a lower rate, and it has been for a few years, than English learners across the state of Wisconsin. So we like to make sure kids have good opportunity of access, and it's always a concern, not only when we see gaps, but when we see our gapping numbers actually be lower than their peers statewide. That's something that doesn't necessarily say what the underlying root cause is, but when we see that kind of result, we want to look at it more closely. So we do the data analysis piece. Both our high school staff and high school students engaged in equal opportunity school surveys about a month ago. They're pretty in-depth surveys. We had a very high participation rate. And one of the deliverables you get is something called an insight card. Now, this is a mock insight card that the organization provides, so you can show it publicly. We could never show you, for FERPA reasons, an actual student's index card. But on the left, you see some information about their GPA, standardized testing, of great importance to us, both in terms of having good academic and career planning conversations with our students, but also related to our theme of greater student belonging. Students have an opportunity in the survey to name adults on staff for two areas. One is trusted adults. So who's that person in the school when you want a sounding board you feel comfortable going to? And then who's someone on staff that you might go to for academic support, study skills support? So we've always hypothesized about who go-to individuals are on staff for students. I mean, all of us, once upon a time, maybe more once upon a time for me than some of you, think about who your trusted adults were when you were in high school, or who you would go to if you want a little coaching up on academic skills. And I think as educators, we all for sure know some kids who really look to us, and we have ideas about some other kids that might look to us for advice. But we've never really asked kids this question specifically. So this, we're starting to look at now, who are teachers that have a lot of kids naming them as trusted adults? Where are some gaps? Also, who are kids that didn't name a trusted adult? We want to follow up on that. Now, it might be long survey, and I just didn't feel like naming my trusted adult when I got to that point of the survey, or they might not feel they have a trusted adult, and we want to see what we can do to address that. One thing I'll say just parenthetically, you may remember that Brian Borowski championed our freshman academy at-risk model that we initiated last year. I'm not going to say correlation equals causation, but we found that the teachers in freshman academy, for students who were in freshman academy, had a very high level of being named as trusted adults. So that was some validation of that model. We also get to find out more, and we do this some from their Zello activities, what their career interests are, but significantly we get information on how do I see myself as a student, what are my barriers, and that gives us information that we can work with to have conversations with kids to get towards that career interest. Now, a lot of the focus around this is on advanced placement and dual credit. We have dual credit courses across the curriculum at the high school. But I really think the linchpin of this is just making sure there's not a gap between a student's aspirations and their career interests and the courses they're taking that would prepare them. And I have just blown our time budget. I apologize, Dr. Brown. Like I said, if you want to talk more about this, I'd love to schedule a one-on-one. It's our first year in. Verona's another high school in our area that participates with EOS.
I think it's a great addition in terms of the belonging piece and just making sure kids can reach their goals. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah. Interesting data.
Yeah, absolutely. And did the kids get to see their data too? I know they asked about it.
Well, they know what they, yes, so they know what they put in, and it's going to work its way into the planning conversations our school counselors have with students on their caseload. But we did have a meeting of some of our student representatives with our Equal Opportunity Schools Partnership Director after she had presented to the high school staff at our Staff Development Day a few weeks ago. And something those students said as well, could you print out our insight cards and give them to us? And apparently that's something in the 15 years of the model that hasn't been done, but that's why it's great to have kids involved in these conversations. And so it's something we are going to do, but we haven't done it yet.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. All right, the last couple of pieces just of our focus for this year. Universal instruction, we always have a piece on, what are we going to directly teach kids? And so we are in the process of developing lessons. And we really felt like there was a gap in K-4 lessons in terms of developmentally appropriate lessons around the topic of like inappropriate language and hate speech and those pieces, and creating them so that they're really appropriate for the specific grade level. So that's an area of focus to develop throughout this year. Our Speak Up training is a training we've done with kids 4th grade. This year we're doing 4th grade and up. Last year we did 6th grade and up, I believe it was, or 7-12, to look at what are some of those strategies we can use to interrupt some of those harassment type situations in order to immediately stop what's going on and then report it to the appropriate person. And then last part is just developing lessons for some of our special observance months. We have developed content last year for 5 of our special observance months. We're doing another 5 this year. And then some of the suggestions from teaching staff is, rather than just having announcements or just having read aloud books, or just like, could we create some lessons around some of those special observance months too. So we're in the process of working on that throughout this year. Family engagement, this one, these are some of the similar goals from last year that we've achieved a lot of them, but we want to continue it. Obviously, access to interpreters, if parents need an interpreter. Transportation to school-sponsored events if needed, if transportation is a barrier for a parent coming to a school-sponsored event. One thing, engaging parents in the hiring process, that's something we've talked about for a couple of years, and we're hoping to make some more progress on that this year. Introducing text messaging capabilities. This was a big deal for a lot of parents, and we are rolling that out this spring to teachers, a system called Parent Square, that so that they'll be able to communicate in text message. I know a lot of the families that I work with will specifically request, like, the easiest way to get a hold of me is a text message. So it's nice that we'll have that capability without teachers having to share their personal cell phone numbers. So we'll have that coming. We just did in October a focus group with parents of students with disabilities. So I'll be back to share that information with the DEI committee in terms of kind of the themes that came out of there and some of those other pieces. We're actually going to create a parent advisory group in specifically around students with disabilities to plan some future trainings for parents and those pieces. We're also going to work with the Center for All on a parent training night in the spring, and just preliminarily we've talked a little bit about maybe doing something around the book The Anxious Generation. It's been very popular. We've done a lot of book studies in the district with it, and just kind of bringing it to the community as well, just to talk through some of the interesting data that's in that book. So coming up this year. And the last section is just policies and procedures. We did revise our harassment policy last year, so just implementing that piece. We did give some guidance at the beginning of this year around that policy, so that our leaders and teachers understand of the revisions that we made to that policy and how we plan to put that piece in action. So we also, for this year, want to develop a plan for a progressive response to harassment incidents. We do have a good reporting system. We have good follow-up. We really want to think more about, like, if this is happening frequently or more than one time, like, what is our plan as leadership and as administrators in terms of managing those incidents. And the last part is just continuing developing content for our special observance months. That kind of ties into our procedures of having more consistency across the district when it comes to those areas. Those are kind of all the key areas of our 3-year plan. Sorry we went over on our
It's my fault.
time. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, Tim, I think you might still be up to answer questions on the September curriculum committee, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Only if we have questions. or-
right. So if you recall, at your request, since Amy and Tim presented to committee, Joan wanted the opportunity for other board members to be able to ask questions about that, if you so choose, after going back and reviewing the recording. So we're open if you have any questions about the presentation. And you'll get the data will be released tomorrow, report cards will be released tomorrow, so we'll bring that information back to you in December, so you can see how our data played itself out in that space as well. So if there aren't any questions, we can continue on.
All right, so we are at the high school planning, and we have our partners here. Last but not least. They all still have a smile. Come on up. And we did thoroughly enjoy the walkthrough before our meeting, how lovely that building is. So, Steve, are you going to introduce this, or Dr. Brown? Who's in charge here?
Both of us? Can we talk at the same time? No. I'll start out, then I'll pass it over to Steve. Last time we met, we provided a scope to the board as it relates to 2026 scope of work for the high school. And we shared with you at that time that we would work with our partners to bring back dollar amounts as it relates to the specific areas that we brought forth. Again, I just want to say thank you to everyone. One person that I forgot to thank last time we met was Scott Bauer, who did a tremendous amount of work with walking through the building with Mike and Robin, Mike, to lay out what we were able to bring to you today. So I wanted to publicly thank Scott as well. But today in your presentation, essentially what has been done here is the price points have been added. And we wanted to provide an opportunity for you to ask any questions around what you see presented before you today, and receive direction from you as it relates to our next steps in this process with the high school planning. So I will turn it over to you, Steve, if you want to add on to that.
Sure, thanks, Dr. Brown. So we appreciate that you allowed us to add this topic onto the special board meeting that we had on Thursday, October 30th, which was to set the budget and tax levy. What we did that night was go through options that we were recommending for board consideration for work in the summer of 2026. What was missing from that night was the budget estimates that Jay was working on. We were working on, first of all, presenting the scope to you, where you had an opportunity to share your thoughts. As an example, Chris, you brought up requesting information on the team center concept or space for during emergencies, weather emergencies. So we've added that in, which Jay can speak to tonight. And at that meeting, we did ask you for consideration of bringing this back to tonight's meeting, where Jay could provide updates on the budget figures for each of the items. We also asked Robin to share information on what the commitment really truly is from the board tonight if you do move ahead, which is really the design fees, which Robin and Jay can talk about that as far as the timing. But basically what we did is updated the presentation that you've already seen to provide some financial estimates, and then Jay has a summary page that he created that he's going to go over with us as well. So, Jay, do you want to grab it? So, thank you.
So again, all these slides were similar to what was presented before. And then we'll get to this slide. So, as Steve mentioned, over the last actually month or so, as we were developing and refining these options, we've been working on putting together detailed budgets to these. So when I say detailed budget, we are reaching out to some major vendors and getting pricing back, but it's not to be confused with us going out and getting hard bids on this work, because it is still fairly conceptual in nature. Obviously, we have a good understanding of both the existing middle school and high school buildings, so we can anticipate and include assumptions that we think will come into play. And we feel as though these are very safe, conservative numbers, but they're real numbers that we can use in terms of overall planning. This summary page, we do have repeated at the end, and we'll talk a little bit more about it at the end, but I wanted to at least show it out of the gate to explain a couple things. One, you see a couple columns here, so that first column listed construction. That would be any of the hard costs that go into actual construction, demolition and construction of a lot of these spaces. The soft cost column, that would include design along with furnitures, fixtures, or equipment. So there's a couple of these scopes where majority of the scope is actually furniture or some equipment. And that's why we split this out, just to give you an understanding. And then that total cost does include everything related with it, which also has 10% contingency. So we built that 10% contingency into here at this point, with it being early and conceptual. It is also based on this work happening in the summer of '26. So we built in some escalation projections to next summer. And then we also did look at it as if this work would happen concurrently. So what that means is that we're assuming this work would all happen at the same time over the course of that summer, which drives a little bit of economy and scale in terms of schools. All right, so what we'd like to do then here is just go through each one of these. Again, we're not going to go through the detailed scope like that was reviewed before, but we just want to give an opportunity to talk about some of the main drivers in terms of budget for each of these options. So this site safety option, again, this was based on that traffic study that has been presented to the board at previous meetings. This scope would include everything you see on there, which doesn't maybe look like much if you're not a civil engineer, but it has all the asphalt paving, any curb and gutter, sidewalk. There is 3 gates that are shown there that can help block the space off. There's also card readers and some electrical work associated with that we do have included. And so this would give the ability to shut those areas down and create that safe path.
Jay, can I just ask a question? It hit me as I was looking at this. Why is there a need for 3 gates versus 2? So it seems to me, you've got the one on the far west, you've got one in the middle, then the far east. I can understand the east and need for one of the 2, but why 3?
And again, Roxanne would probably be able to best answer that. I should take a stab unless you know, Ryan.
I can take a stab at it also. Roxanne Johnson, of professional engineering, design work. I believe that first gate is to stop people getting into that parking lot during school hours. But I would imagine it is open or carded for staff to get in there. There is this sort of zone in between that second and third gate, that it's hard to get in and turn around without going into the other area. So I think it's really sort of just trying to keep them from going into that space, but also creating a pedestrian path if the staff parking lot is open for access.
Okay.
Which
You
is my
could still
assumption on
safely
that.
get from the building down through
Yeah.
to, but still have access to this parking lot that was designed.
Yeah, and preventing parents that might be dropping off from going too far and then
Right,
having to
right.
do an awkward turnaround when they hit the second gate.
Thank you.
So building safety, security at the south building, majority of this cost is actually for the clock, bell, and PA system that we've been talking about for a long time. But there is some other aspects to this, and that would be adding some doors and a little bit of space up here that, even though it's not shown in blue, that is work we have included. And then conversion of these spaces for that SRO office and relocating that laundry room, converting the laundry room to the classroom high school department move. Again, the majority of this scope is actually furniture. So UA has put together estimates based on that. The estimates are based on what's similar style or similar type and finish level of the furniture that's going to be in the new middle school. Obviously, it's going to be age appropriate for high school students, but we've used that as really a baseline in terms of establishing that budget. And then there is some demolition, some flooring. We have included some painting, even in the rooms that are yellow. Once those are vacated and stuff comes off the walls and everything, we think there may need some touch-up painting just to make those. So the scope will work at the both face classrooms. So again, this is the one in the existing high school and then also in the south building. This includes a demonstration station in both of those classrooms. So when we did the tour today, one of the first spaces we went into had some of that built where it had the big hood. There's going to be 3 monitors up there. There's that island case rig which has a range in it as well. So this scope includes one of those at each spot. And then we also have furniture included at the south building to be age appropriate for high school students. Gymnastics, again, this has been discussed. This is taking the space as is. And then the cafeteria, again, from a construction standpoint, the cafeteria doesn't have a lot of scope. There's some painting. We have allowance in there for some wall graphics for that space. But then a majority of this is going to be, again, furniture that will be age appropriate, and then also potentially some equipment for grab and go or that type of stuff. It is good to know both in this scenario and actually the face room I didn't mention. Those demonstration areas likely could be redeployed in future plans in terms of if that face room ends up becoming different space in the face room area. So although it is a significant investment, it could be one that you could still use down the road depending on what the future planning look like. And then of course, any of the furniture that you would provide in this cafeteria space could be located somewhere else if there was a better solution. The Waunakee K-8 space, this is down in that southwest corner. There's a decent amount of scope related to this one from a demolition standpoint, but then also we're creating some smaller rooms. I believe there's 4 new rooms that we're providing, and then we figured casework in the main space plus some of those rooms, and then new doors, flooring, painting, walls, and all the associated. There's also some new signage for wayfinding too. Softball, so this is building a new press box. We've tried to match the existing one that's across the street with a couple exceptions. We do have money in here for plumbing potentially if that is needed or desired at that space. As we reviewed these with the administration last week, we felt like we should carry money in this for now until we know more in terms of design. And then we do have some fencing modifications, allowance for that in this scenario if we need to match the fence configuration across the street. So those were all of them that showed up in the summary. And then, as Steve mentioned, we did spend some time since the last meeting looking at the team room in the Clement facility. I'm going to have Robin talk to the scope of that a little bit, and then I can add a little bit more information in terms of the budget.
So I know there has been a building that was fundraised for. This is a reduced scope from what that fundraised. This essentially has 2 team rooms with lockers in it, some benches, marker boards or a presentation space for halftime preps. It does have some toilet rooms and then a small room for a trainer near the fields. But that's really the basic of it. So it is a reduced scope from that. I just want to be clear on that one. That's where the cost, some of the cost has changed. It is also a more durable construction than that one was, so that does increase the cost of that. So because it is, the initial request was that it's inclement weather facility, it does have masonry walls and a precast lids so that it is more durable and could be designed towards a storm shelter. Any questions about the scope of that?
Where do you have this currently located?
So it's on the east side of the soccer field, the turf soccer field, up there.
That
Oh, I
parking
got
lot
you.
and then
Okay, got it.
actually-
Got it, okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, so that's if we do have one, that's where that would go.
Sure, got it, okay.
I think exact scope is maybe still yet to be defined if this does move forward. If there are some other amenities that need to be, or things that need to be addressed.
Yeah, so as Robin mentioned, the main differences between the one, we actually were low bidders on that one from 5 years ago. And our bid was just under $650,000. That building was masonry, but it had wood framing for the roof. So the difference between this one and that one is this would have actually masonry precast, so it makes it more durable in terms of inclement weather. But this one is a little bit smaller than that one was in terms of overall square footage and the amount of spaces that are in it. If you brought forward just using cost index, our bid, it'd probably be around 150 grand, so it's not too much different in terms of overall cost and scope. A little bit smaller, but a lot more the robust roof structure.
Do you see that as a building that would be accessible to like softball and baseball? I mean, is it inside the fence, outside the fence, accessible from the outside?
Still, the idea is that it should be accessible to softball as well. I think we still have to look at, design it and look at some door placements and how they access it, if they go up the road and around, if there's any openings in the fence versus multiple openings on either side of the fence, sort of looking at that. But the intent is that if one is located over in this area, that it is accessible for soccer and for softball. It is a further walk for baseball to
Does-
this location.
Is there well, there is a building over by baseball. Is there any, and on the other side of the soccer field, right, there's also, I'm just looking for.
There's the concessions building over
Yeah.
there, and I think at the moment, during inclement weather, teams
Might
go
go in
into the
there.
storage side of that. So that's where there are some facilities, but not the ones that are intended or designed for inclement weather or for teams.
It should be clear, the inclement weather capability is designed for the teams, not for the fans, correct?
That was what we were sort of told, is like, we had a number that we we're gonna try to
Right,
hit,
right.
and that's sort of, if you have a softball and a soccer game at the same time.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. It is for the athletes, with the intention being that, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, that the parents and fans go back to their cars. And if some fans are, I happen to have been at games where there was a hailstorm, and I know some elderly members of our family just took shelter in the concession area because they couldn't quite make it down the slope from the soccer field. So I think there's
Yeah.
that for some of those, but I believe the intent is for teams now.
Sure, sure.
It doesn't mean that some people that are not able to make it to their car couldn't make it.
And then we have the summary budget here listed again, and I will note that the team inclement weather bill, we did not have included in this. We had that just as a separate slide there, just for informational purposes. And so again, you see here, the total scope of work for the projects we've outlined is $2,556,000. One thing we wanted to note is, and you'll see this on that maintenance tracking summary that we present to the facility committee and board, the scope of work that was not completed for high school projects that was part of the original referendum is $1,320,000. So we were tracking that as dollars on that spreadsheet, but if you wanted to use that to help fund some of these, obviously we pull it off of there and it could be applied to these. And then Steve and I have talked, based on where we're at with the middle school project and the contingency that we've not needed to really touch very much. And where things are at from a construction and timing standpoint, we'd be comfortable issuing a deductive change order from that project in the amount, in this case, we put $1,240,000, but whatever would be needed to help cover the cost of this work, if that made the board comfortable in terms of where that funding was coming from to be able to make decisions. Go ahead with this work. I will mention, obviously, if you do approve EUA to go ahead with design, which Robin can talk about those dollars in a second, those decisions wouldn't need to be made until early spring when we would come back with all the final bid results. We want to at least share a path in terms of what funding.
So, the design fee range, I had listed in here 80,000 to 140. At the time this presentation was submitted, I was waiting to hear back about the clock bell and PA system and if fee had been included in that number or not for design build. It had not, so now I'm probably saying it's closer to 100 to 140,000, because that fee would have to be accounted for. The range does have to do with the fact that there are some ranges built into this. Our fee is based is a set percentage, based off of the construction cost. When, essentially, with this smaller project, it would be at the time of it.
But based on her note there, that we have the 140 included in the overall
Yes.
number, so.
You do.
If it does go down, that would just reduce that number.
So if I could just clarify a couple of things. Further work that we would ask the budget committee to do would be to talk through the funding sources topic. So what's really important to remember is we lowered the property tax levy last month by 2.3 million. We have to make a final decision as to what will the funding source for that be. We also have to talk through the funding sources for the referendum. We also have to talk through not only the $1 million payment we received from the IRS, but also the next one that's coming. So as a board, you do need to spend some time lining up these resources and how you would want to allocate them over the next year and a half. Jay and I wanted to show you just a potential path. This certainly isn't the only one, where you could see the work that was not completed at the high school is 1.3 million. Jay made an important point that we moved that over to the maintenance tracker that the facility committee looks at during those meetings. So we can't have that money in two places at the same time. So we'd have to make a decision. We want to put it over here and not have it be used for maintenance projects. And then the savings at the middle school, we also have to make sure we don't put those dollars in two places, meaning we don't want to put them on the maintenance tracker. We also don't want to then use them towards reducing the tax levy if we're using them here. So ultimately, in the end, I think it's important for the budget committee to probably sketch all this out. So that as a board, you feel comfortable with the way resources are being allocated. We don't have to make that decision tonight. The decision tonight would be to ask EUA to move ahead with the design, which would then allow the budget committee to take a look at allocating resources throughout the remainder of both 2026 and 2027. So we'd want to sketch out both years so that you can see that as a board. And then we also want to have the facility committee pivot from this work to the long-term plan at the high school, which we do need to bring back to you because we've been working on that as well. So at the end of the meeting, we're going to ask for both of those committees to meet before the December board meeting. What we really would be looking for tonight is a vote on the scope of the work. As an example, as a board, you could choose to move forward with the scope that you see on the screen. You could choose to include the team center in the scope. Whatever you would like to see EUA's team move forward with for planning for 2026, we would be asking for your approval tonight. which then would allow Robin and her team to do the design work, would allow Jay and his team to prepare for the bidding. And then in between those periods of time, we have the ability to really line up the funding and make sure that we're allocating funds appropriately between maintenance, the tax levy savings, this project, and any other major items you as a board would want to be allocating expenditures towards.
Do you have a ballpark of how much the IRS reimbursement for the middle school will be, and a general sense of when the district might receive that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So placing the middle school into service for summer school speeds up the timeline for us to be able to apply for those funds. So I would expect that we would go through a very similar process that we did for Heritage. So it is very likely that those funds would arrive. So middle school will open next summer, so summer of '26. It's very likely those funds would arrive in the early to mid 2027 timeframe. Is what we would expect to see. And as far as the dollar amounts, Jay, if I can remember, I think we were in the $4 million range.
$4 million.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so direction from the board to give to our partners as they progress.
So Steve, just to be clear, the team room inclement weather area is not currently in the scope, correct?
It is not included on this page, but however, as a board, if you wanted that included in the scope, you could include that in the motion.
Can I mean, I feel that it's an important component for the safety of our athletes. Is this position the best position? And I don't, Robin, is there, I mean, so we have baseball, what happens, does football just go to the high school? Soccer, or football and lacrosse, they just move to the high school during bad weather? So we have softball and soccer, they would be okay, but baseball, do they have space to get out of the weather?
They can't be done in one building.
Okay.
I would say that we did look at options to accommodate. Two, it does cause a flow of events.
Yeah.
Do you want me to get into that? Okay. So we did look at the concessions building that is up by the soccer. There is a facilities maintenance portion behind that. There is an additional, one of the options that didn't make there's the urgent list and then there's the urgent list sort of thing. It didn't make it onto this list yet. That created a separate maintenance building south of the soccer field. It is actually in the slide deck.
Rebecca, would you scroll towards that, past that, please?
Yeah,
You can keep going.
slide 33, that is a,
Doesn't go past.
Oh, okay.
Oh, because it's hidden.
Yeah,
it's
there
hidden
it is.
slide.
Yep.
But if you click on it,
It'll,
yeah. So there was discussion, and one of the things was a facilities maintenance building over here south of that soccer. That frees up that area by concessions, which then could be converted into a team room in inclement weather that is more easily accessible for the baseball. But that location is far from softball. So there's not a good location that the teams felt that they would use as a team room. And I would say that I do think from softball, the middle school may be closer than that team room would be.
Yeah.
For an inclement weather sort of.
I guess that was part of my question, with the design of the building, in the fall season, there would be no issue, it'd be one team flooding into there, but if you're looking at the spring, you've got soccer, softball, baseball simultaneously, the capacity of that room couldn't take all those kids in there with inclement weather, or could it?
It can, so, you can fit 60 kids into each of the team rooms. Because it is the lockers and there's the open area around it. In inclement weather, the ratio of space per person reduces because you're just in there for an emergency situation. So it can accommodate both of the teams, for the two fields.
Yeah, actually, 4 teams,
Yes, sorry.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
both of the,
Yep. Home, away, for both.
and home away for
both
for
teams.
both
Yeah,
of the
both
sports.
sports, yeah. Thank you.
The problem is like with softball, because I've lived that, is that door of the middle school is locked, right? So you actually have to go all the way around to the school, to the gym, right, to get in if something happens. So it's not just readily there, because it's a locked door.
Yeah, and I think it is closer, but yes, you're right, if it's not accessible, there's a way to make it accessible in potential situations. Or for that team to go up to the soccer concessions, is a bit of a trek. I would also say that one is not, the space is not the same as the new building, so that one's not really designed for, if you did that one and only that one, the space does not allow for essentially 6 teams, and actually 2 baseball fields, so 8 teams to be in that one at one time. So you could do just the newer construction, now and make it larger, but exactly where it goes, whichever side of the soccer field it goes to, it disadvantages one. So that was the proposal, and then it was just sort of, phase 1 is the new one. If you wanted to, the renovation and the facilities maintenance. But the thing is, you do have to include, maintenance storage still would need to go somewhere, because that space needs to be taken over. Or we have a whole other building over on that side. Space-wise, facilities thought that would.
Do we know if there's been, any money had been donated for this particular building? And if so, how much? Or did that phase of the fundraising not take place yet?
That's what Mark's referring to is 5 years ago, as Jay was referencing, quoting a team center. There was an effort for fundraised, first of all, turf field. And then the second phase of that was designed to raise money for a team center. So the initial round of fundraising resulted in the organization completely paying for the turf field. So there's no fund, there hasn't been funds owed to the board for years on the field. And there is a small dollar amount remaining that was above and beyond the cost of the turf field. And there was the intent at some point to start up again the conversation about the team center. The Waunakee Area Education Foundation, WAVE, is holding those funds. I think it's less than $50,000. But really, the fundraising efforts pretty much stopped and didn't really pursue any further at that point. And I think it was the gap due to they had fully funded the field. Jay remembers quoting the building, there weren't enough resources to pay for the field in the building, so the conversation just kind of stopped at that point.
So, back to the location, have the coaches, athletic director, I mean, who's deciding where it goes?
In the design, it will be ultimately decided. This is where it was shown back with the
So it-
original plan,
okay.
was to put it over in this general location.
Yeah.
I think that was more soccer driven at the time,
Yeah.
but the exact location is still sort of yet to be determined. There's a couple additional, I think a shed out there and stuff like that, that we would have to investigate, and the grading to really get the precise location. And as far as which side of it's on, I think that has to be, if you're only doing one, that sort of has to be a district call, because I think all teams will prefer closer to them.
Yeah.
And I would say if you do two, the view is that the most cost-effective solution might be to use that existing concessions and build a more of a larger maintenance shed type of a, lower cost of construction type of construction.
Yeah.
And then as Mike was looking at options here, I mean, there is an option to do two of the exact same building, each of which is $790. But we were assuming that wasn't exactly the path we were going down it for this summer.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the direction that.
I don't think that's the
Yeah.
direction.
So right now, what you just need though is just the motion, which would include this team room, just for the design phase, correct?
Yeah.
And to your point
If you
before,
want them to-
it does not necessitate then that it has to be done, the design can then be used at a later time. Is that what you said at our last meeting?
Yes, yeah. You have one design from the previous.
Yeah.
So we could look at doing a pared back design and doing it as inclement weather. That would be a change. If you're not looking for both inclement and team room, then I would say like the previous design is a good design and you wouldn't have to pay for another one. But the inclement weather component.
The existing concession area facility is holding it. That's not an inclement weather facility.
Correct.
Well,
It's not a tornado shelter.
correct.
It's an inclement, it can be converted to inclement weather for rain, hail, those type of things, but it is
Yes.
not a tornado range.
Okay.
So, if we'd like more of an inclement weather facility versus a team locker room facility, are you saying we could get a larger space for less money because it'd be different design, or the cost would be about the same?
I would say larger space for less money.
Yeah, if it's just open space in that locker room.
Oh, sorry, I think you mean if it's locker room, but it's not, it's wood structure or
Oh, you're
metal
saying
shed
it's not
unit.
not tornado.
Essentially what you, yeah.
It'd be inclement weather, not,
Oh, sorry.
I guess, the original, part of me, I'm still caught
Mhm.
with the original, which was team locker rooms and then could be used as a inclement weather space. And so that's got certain designs that are costly. You got the plumbing, you got a lot of things different. Do we need a locker room there, or do we need inclement weather space there?
Because what do we have now if a tornado is happening? There's nothing. We have to go to the school.
Mhm.
So we have the schools as that shelter. And the biggest need is more of the inclement, to get the whole tornado thing. The biggest need is the inclement weather.
That's what I'm thinking.
Right. Because we already have the facility for a tornado. It's not obviously as convenient, but you're given warnings enough to get to that.
Right, and that's where it's, if you don't need a tornado, then you don't need the precast later.
Right.
But there are certain, if you're calling anything a tornado shelter, there are certain codes that you have to follow to rate it as a tornado shelter. inclement weather building, that there are, different language means different things.
So specifically what you have here though is the team room and inclement weather area is what's put in
This
there.
one is actually tornado shelter.
Oh, this is the tornado?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
For this call.
Where I'm stuck with this is just the fiscal part of it. I'm looking at, it's almost $1 million, just short. We're looking at a significant capital initiative in the near future at the high school site. We're putting $2.5 million into our school, but almost, well, it's not half, a third of that went into a structure like this. And I'm wondering how much is nice to have versus need to have. And then we have this other piece of our ongoing state budget issues where we're trying to manipulate our funds for the best of the community. It just seems like a big ask to me financially for sports use that maybe it'd be nice to have, but we don't need to have at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think the need to have honestly is an inclement weather area and bathrooms. Like that's the need to have, right? And I do feel, I think the point of it is, and why it's not on the budget summary sheet, is that we will look to explore to see if there's fundraising opportunities, right, from the different sports for those costs.
So I would say that you could choose to move forward, us starting to design something now. This one is also one that, the reason we need approval for some of these is because it's a building that's gonna be occupied in September by students.
Right.
Your athletic stuff goes virtually year-round.
Right.
So there's always gonna be some activity out there anytime that it's buildable and not covered in snow. So whether it is available by September or later, you know, I don't know if that changes your cost or like that. So I think that there is a possibility that if you decided next month to do this, we could sort of stagger those design starts, just because that is not the critical path students are walking in the doors.
Right. Sure, that makes sense.
Thank you, Robin, that helps a lot. So are we in agreement to go with the list as presented and begin that design work?
Would you like a motion for that? Or
I
just
would
to-
like a motion for that, if we're ready for that.
I would move to move forward the list as shown, sans sports-related team rooms, for further scoping work.
Okay.
Seconded.
Okay, so I didn't hear the last part. So are we including the sports or not?
No,
Yes,
sir.
okay.
This
And
list.
Just this
Just
list.
as presented.
Thank you,
And, you know, we'll consider
Yep,
the
right.
next later.
thank you.
Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor of proceeding with the list, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. All right, passed. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience with us. Moving on, do you have any announcements, Dr. Brown?
I do not have any announcements, thank you.
So we are to the consent agenda, and we can take it all at once. I would like to make note of 2 gifts that are notable in the board book. One is for a Chevy Trailblazer vehicle. What will that be used for? Anybody?
High
I
school.
think automotive in the shop.
Okay.
Automotive.
And that is being donated by Jeremy and Sarah Aldsacker. And then there is a $20,000 music donation from Jan and Ted Tweed that will be used over the next 5 years for both our middle school and high school scholarship for music students. So thank you for those donations. So I would take a motion for the whole consent agenda unless somebody feels a need to pull something out or ask about it.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. All right. Board business, legislative update? Anything?
I am meeting with Senator Hasselbein on Wednesday to talk primarily about 4K and sort of get a better understanding of the future of this DCF program and to share with her how it's impacting our district.
Good source there. Thank you. So the committees, we must have some, yes. So, first of all, we have curriculum presentations next Monday. That begins at 4 o'clock. So those are going to be held at the Arboretum Elementary School. And I think we did have one late last year, so these are done a little bit differently. We do have to call a meeting to order there, but then we kind of separate and go to 2 different sessions, flip-flop halfway through. Yeah, okay. Curriculum Committee will be meeting Monday, November 24th at 4 o'clock. Co-curricular Committee will be meeting Tuesday, December 2nd at 7:30 a.m. Budget Committee Monday, December 1st at 7:30, and Facility Committee Monday, December 1st at 8:30. And then we have the funding, a reminder of the school funding, which is next week, Wednesday, both at 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. And that's it. Policy has not been scheduled. We'll still be working on that. All right, so that is the end of my committee scheduling, and I think I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you very much.